the slower pace of summer, we are not freed from obligations nor released from responsibilities of business and family life. Strengthen us, therefore, to fulfill our tasks and to seize opportunities to do good. Help us to live not by our own laws, but by those who serve the common good. Help us to spend this day in such a way that when the day is ended, we can rest with the satisfaction of having lived and worked honorably and well. Blessed is thy comfort those who are burdened of spirit and heart. Give direction to the wavering, courage to the fearful, and faith to those without conviction. Accept our gratitude for food and sociability enjoyed here today, and for the enjoyment of involvement in this special fellowship. We pray that with grateful hearts and spirits energized to serve. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Well, we haven't done a Rotary song for a while, so wow, what a good crowd today. So I put some word sheets on the table for you. Viva la Rotary. Let all
Rotarians can sing, Viva. With silence throughout the song they ring, Viva. 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 Truth is our faith, love is our faith. Viva Rotary.
All right.
All right, Chris, you're up. Chris is our acting secretary today.
All right. Today we have two visiting Rotarians. Our speaker today, Mr. Randy Overbeck, joins us from Xenia, and Mr. Rodney Creech from Eaton. And we have two guests, John Nestor and Josie Nestor, both invited by Mr. Jeff Nestor. Hey. Prospective members. Oh, that was scratched out. My bad. So anyway, to all of you, welcome to Miamisburg, where the laugh string is always out. Woo!
All right. Announcements. Eric.
Yep, I'm hearing them. Jeff Lesser almost always has one, so I do.
Sure.
Just so everybody knows, the Rock the Green Tomato Festival is coming up.
That's right.
Next weekend, not this weekend, but next weekend. Anybody that wants to is welcome to go to the website, Facebook page, and sign up to be a volunteer if they'd like. Thank you. Fireworks happen. Yes, sir. Okay.
Oh, that was quick. No more announcements. Get the regular question?
I have a regular question. Any tables want to volunteer? Good job. Familiar with our webpage? In the right-hand corner, there are 3 motivational words. My question to you is, what are those 3 words?
All right. Happy dollars. Happy dollars. Who is happy today?
So that's
Sure.
one half of the grandkids could be here today, so I'm glad they could make it. And the other one for our great Miamisburg Alumni Golf outing was a great success last Friday. So thanks everybody who participated and supported that. Thank you.
Okay, $2 happy. Spent 2 days down at the Wilds.
Oh,
Good. What'd you do?
Southern Ohio.
Southern Ohio.
yeah, I'm happy. Last Thursday, Jane and I went to the Franklin Carlisle meeting and talked about a night at the races. So they want to see whether or not it's something they can do. So that was fun.
Excellent.
Thank you, Eric.
I have two happy dollars. Last week I spent the week in Holderness, New Hampshire. It was a sort of a small family reunion on my wife's side. And what was interesting was it was the first time my grandkids have ever met their cousins on the other side. And these kids were together for like 5 minutes when they were out on the volleyball court. It's like they had known each other their entire lives. My wife said it has something to do with pheromones. I'm not sure I understand what that is. And the second happy dollar I have is for my brother Mike, who had to call me the first thing this morning and let me know he got a hole-in-one at Heatherwood last week.
We're talking about.
I got a happy dollar because I reorganized the website to show our upcoming speakers in the middle column now, and then I was like, "There's some dead space. I'm going to put the photo of Paul Schultz receiving his president badge and pin. If you want to see a smile, go and look at those pictures."
Fantastic. Thanks for that.
I have Venmo happy dollars instead of real ones. Cora is sad that she couldn't be here today. She was a little bit upset that I was here without her. So she asked me to put in a happy dollar that for me being happy to be here, but I am happy to be here. And happy puppy is too. You guys have all seen him. He's here with me. Okay.
I have two happy dollars because for the next few months my spouse is 2 years older than me. So let's make it
Yeah, I think that's the end of happy dollars.
All right, the answers to the question.
The three words on the upper right-hand corner of our club's webpage.
The answer is create lasting impact.
You are Rotary geniuses. Create lasting impact.
And that is our theme for this year. Create lasting impact. Okay, so we got top dog today. Top dog winning share is $262. Looking for the 9 of diamonds today. 9 of diamonds. Are those green tickets there, Eric?
Those are green tickets.
Green tickets.
Who would like to pick, Chris?
Here.
I guess.
You ready, Karen? Is this you again?
All right. 071.
071. One of the masters. So they had a pretty good chance of winning. We got. All righty.
So we're looking for a 9 of diamonds. You know, if you did a joker, you roll $5.
Grandpa was $5.
Rodney has to pay that.
Who is that, Rodney? It's a
joke. But you got to keep a joker.
You willed it.
He's done. Working on 20 minutes. It's here.
$5.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh, very good. Very good. All right. Well, today's speaker, as we can read the banner here, award-winning author. A lot of you know Randy, so he said, "Give me as much time as you can," so he can fill it. So we're gonna hear a little bit about, hopefully, some about the other books that you've written, but also about.
This is about the revolution. I'll make a little comment about my other books, but I'm going to talk about the Revolutionary War.
Revolutionary War, great.
Am I coming up?
Oh, there it is.
I can kind of try to get everything switched over.
I can It's out. Get to this copy. Right. Come on. I mean, next.
You have your headset.
And it's my remote. Okay. Before I get started, just a quick note on everybody's table. I have a,
You keep talking, I'm gonna audio check real quick.
okay, I'm going to, there's a sign up sheet for my newsletter. If I intrigued you with my presentation today and you'd like to learn more, please give me your name and email address. Print carefully. You'd be amazed how many times I get home and I go to my wife, is this an R or a D? All right, so I'm going to share with you some information that I have learned in the process of doing research for my latest book, which is on your table. I'll talk about that a little bit at the end, called Abigail Trench. It's called 5 Reasons We Won the Revolutionary War, and they're not what you learned in school. So almost everybody here, I think everybody here has probably been to at least an American history class or 2 or 3. And you probably had books similar to what you're seeing up there, and you learned these important facts about the Revolutionary War, about the Declaration of Independence, and about Lexington and Concord and Bunker Hill and the surprise attack on Trenton. But there's an awful lot about the Revolutionary War that we have never been taught. That's really important. And when I did the research, I found out that the Revolutionary War was not as we have been taught. It was actually a far more complicated, far more controversial, far darker, far more dangerous than we've been led to believe. And I'm going to share with you 5 reasons we won that war, and the reasons are not kind of what we were taught in school. So the first reason is reason number 1 has to be about George Washington. And almost everybody here, I bet, was taught by your American history teacher that George Washington was a great general. I need to be over here. But the answer is he actually, by today's standards, was definitely not a great general. Now, so I don't offend anybody here who's a big Washington fan. There's lots of wonderful things about Washington. He was the commander-in-chief of the army, and he did eventually persevere. And perhaps more importantly, he had the confidence of the founding fathers of Jefferson, Franklin, Hamilton, Adams. But by conventional standards, he was not a good general. If you think of who we think of great generals like Grant or Schwarzkopf or Eisenhower or MacArthur or Patton, he doesn't meet any of those qualifications. So first of all, he actually lost more battles than he won. Okay, in fact, one of the really horrible battles was one of his first battles of the Revolutionary War, fought in September of 1776. He had part of his army, 3,000 members of his army, try to defend what's called Fort Washington, which was actually a constructed fort outside of Manhattan. Not only did they lose the battle, every continental soldier was either killed or captured. 3,000 soldiers like that gone. They were surrounded by a British force of 8,500 and had to surrender. In fact, what Washington learned to do better than anything else was run away. Now, run away in the sense that not he was scared, but he learned that his army was no match for the British army. And the British army, at least in the early days, almost always outnumbered his army. So he learned mainly from the Native Americans, what we today call guerrilla tactics, where he would take small groups of his soldiers, isolate some of the British soldiers, attack them to whittle down their forces and to make them feel worse. But even having said that, clearly his leadership was one of the reasons that we won the Revolutionary War, just not in the sanitized way that we were taught in school. The second reason is about the army. Now, I don't know about you, but generally we were taught that the dedicated Continental Army won the war because they were right and the British were wrong. Okay, well, that really wasn't true. The truth is that the colonial army never, ever should have stood a chance against the British army. So if you think about this, in the 1770s, by the time we declared revolution, the British army had already established colonies all over the world. They had colonies in the Caribbean, they had colonies in Africa, they had colonies in Asia, even colonies in Europe. You remember that line, the sun never sets on the British Empire. So when the colonies declared their independence, Britons went, what do these guys think they are? These 13 little colonies think they're going to declare independent?
they had already had success conquering everybody all over the globe. However, what happened was that one of the reasons that we won was that Britain had this far-flung empire. So Britain had to send men to India, had to send men to the Caribbean, had to send men to Africa to defend their colonies, and as a result, drained those men down. And they also underestimated. They thought all the continental forces were a bunch of boobs. They often made fun of them and said they didn't have the prowess. And the Continental Army showed an amazing ability to adapt, which is one of George Washington's best qualities. We also had we had virtually an endless supply of men. So by the counts of the historians, about 240,000 men fought in the Revolutionary War, as opposed to the Britons had to, of course, sail their people over, and they only had they only used a total of 80,000 men in the war. So we outnumbered them 3-1. And that's why the Britons, they were so low on men. That's why they paid the Hessians paid to have 30,000 Hessians join the British. That was part of their 80,000. And the other thing that I learned was that unlike if both the officers and the regulars in the Continental Army served because they cared, served because this was important to them, or served because they respected Washington, or they may have respected whoever their leader was in that particular regiment. The British, that was not the case. The British, it was just a job. They're sending me over here and many of the British officers were very ego-driven, and they thought they were coming over to America, win a few battles, and go back and bask in their glory in London. So they never really had the commitment that our army did. The third reason that we're often given, which is not true, is about the Declaration of Independence. Now, we all just got done celebrating the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, and I am in no way going to the Declaration of Independence is, in fact, perhaps one of the most seminal documents ever created in the world, but it was not the reason we won the war. The Declaration of Independence, we don't know this now. We didn't know. Many of us have not heard this, but Declaration of Independence was actually created not for the common man. It was created for the educated class. It was created for the nobles. It was created for the king. It was created for Parliament to state our goals in lofty languages that fit them. But that was not convinced the everyday American. The first thing that we need to know is that, and this may come as a shock to the at that time, by the best guess of the historians, only between 30 and 40% of the individuals in the colonies wanted independence. The majority of the people in the colonies actually wanted to stay a English colony, but they wanted to have independence, elect their own people, draft their own taxes. England was not interested in that at the time. The best way to describe what was happening at that time is that it was actually a civil war. Now, when I was taught, and I'm assuming when you were taught, no one ever explained that to you. But the reality was that it really was, in most places in the colonies, neighbor against neighbor, family against family, brother against brother. It did depend some on where you lived. If you were likely from Massachusetts or Maine, the rebels, as they were called, the patriots, far outnumbered the loyalists. But if you were from New York, the loyalists far outnumbered the rebels. If you were in the South, if you were from Virginia, Virginia was the hotbed of support for the revolution. But if you were from Georgia, Georgia only wanted to stay with Britain and keep the slave and cotton flowing. What really happened was that what really made the difference for the everyday colonials wasn't the Declaration of Independence. It was a gentleman by the name of Thomas Paine. Now, I would imagine most of you might remember his name. He is credited with writing two things that made the difference. His pamphlets, Common Sense and the American Crisis. You have probably, I'm sure your teacher read some of that, or you read some of the American Crisis in the class. What he did different from the Declaration of Independence, is he took the language that was in the Declaration of Independence and he put it into language that everyday people could understand, that everyday people would get excited about, would understand. In fact, historians believe, now think about this at the time, historians believe that somewhere near 500,000 copies of the pamphlet were printed. Many of them were printed illegally. They were copied and printed, but they was printed. Okay, now understand there were only 2.5 million people in the colonies at that time. So 500,000 people. Historians believe that nearly every colonist read, or more likely had it read to them during that time. I think it's significant that when Washington chose to motivate his troops, he didn't read the Declaration of Independence. He read Thomas Paine's American Crisis. The fourth reason that in my experience, I've never heard anything about is what I call British cruelty. Now, first of all, in any war, both sides commit terrible atrocities, and there is no question that the rebel forces did lots of despicable things. But the things that we actually have record of that they did pale by comparison to what the British did. The British, not only did they have men that raped women and beat up men and stole, they made it a policy to do those things. We have anecdotal records of, and I'm sure you've heard about this, anecdotal records of the British getting hold of what they called a rebel collaborator, forcing them in their house and then burning the house with them inside while everybody else was watching, to demonstrate this is what happens if you side with the rebels. Perhaps the worst is this. The British, when they captured prisoners, they put them, most of the prisoners were on derelict British ships in New York Harbor. The ships had no heat. They had very, very limited food. There's another whole story about that. An American colonist was in charge of providing food, and he stole a lot of money, but they didn't have hardly any food. There was rampant with disease and rats. And in fact, just as a result of that, twice as many continental soldiers died from disease than died from battle. So battle wounds. And most of that was because of the conditions they were put them in. The British Army made a policy of stripping the crops and the livestock and stores whenever they attacked places. Oftentimes, these goods never even made it back to the British Army. Supposedly, they were stealing the cows to feed the British Army, but they often got sold on the black market. And then their soldiers took it as free rein that they could do whatever they wanted. So if you interfered with them, they might beat you or kill you. If the woman interfered, they would rape her and then kill her. There are lots of anecdotal evidence of that. There's a number of massacres. I won't go into that, but this particular one is called the Baylor Massacre. A group of Continental soldiers were in a field sleeping, and the British regiment came upon them and surprised them, caught them by surprise. But instead of taking them prisoner, they went around and bayoneted most of the soldiers, and they all died. And they didn't all die, but many of them died before even when they tried to surrender, they would still shoot them and kill them. And those kind of things were not unusual. What I found most surprising, in 1779, London was growing impatient that the rebels were so stubborn, and they wanted to enact something that would bring them to heel. And they drafted a plan called a Plan of Desolation, which basically gave the commanders free rein to do anything they wanted to kill, rape, murder, burn as a whole army. What happened was, instead of bringing the rebels to heel, what that did was it convinced lots of people who were on the fence, who were independent, to move to the rebel side. But the most significant that I learned that made a difference in why we won the war is the Culper Ring. Now, for those of you that don't know what the Culper Ring is the secret spy ring organized by George Washington. And it was an espionage network unlike nothing that had ever happened before. So before this happened, here's what passed for espionage in those days. Okay, I'm the general, and I go and say, okay, I want volunteers to go into the British camp and come back and give me reports on how many cannons, how many men, how many boats. And men would volunteer, and they'd send 4 men into their camp. If they were lucky, 2 of them came back. The others were caught or killed. And often the reports that those 2 gave were contradictory. So the commander had to decide, well, which one do I believe? Which one is right? How he set up the Culper ring was very much different. So first of all, the ring consisted of 6 men and 1 woman. Washington did not know the names of any of the individuals in the ring except his immediate contact, who we now call the spy master. His name is Benjamin Talmadge. Benjamin Talmadge had contact with the next person. That person had contact with the next person. So how we operate as a spy ring today, this was the first time that was done, and George Washington organized that. The Culper ring was successful because the members never divulged who they were. So during the war, and most of them afterwards, in fact, it was so secret that the identity of the final 6th man, I told you there were 6 men and 1 woman, the 6th man was not discovered until the 1930s. And the reason they discovered it was a historian working compared the handwriting of the personal correspondence of Robert Townsend with handwriting that's in the archives for the Culper ring. And that's how they discovered who that was. The Culper ring operated in New York City because that's where the British Army was. But they had to get their messages to Washington, who kept moving his headquarters because it was in trouble. So sometimes it was in Pennsylvania, sometimes it was in Connecticut, sometimes it was in New Jersey. It was always very difficult. And the interesting thing is the operatives were just everyday people like you guys here. So one was a farmer, one was a merchant, one was a boatman. They're not people that you would ever have suspected. And most of their reports were rather routine. They would give troop strengths and where the cannons were and where the ships were headed out, those kinds of things. We have about 52, I think, different reports. But the Culper ring was critical of uncovering several secrets that changed the trajectory of the war. I'm just going to share 2 of them with you. There's more than that. But given time, I'm trying to stay on time here. So the first one is about the counterfeit. So during the Revolutionary War, during all of that time, from 1775 on, the British had tried to counterfeit continental currency as a way of attacking the infrastructure that supported the rebels. Most of those attempts were pretty clumsy. The counterfeits were easily spotted. But in 1779, the British got hold of the special paper. So they were actually pretty sophisticated in printing their currency, kind of like we are. They used a special rag paper, which had special filaments in the center of the paper so it made it very difficult to duplicate. Anyway, but the British got a hold of 2 barrels or 2 pallets of this paper. And then they got somebody in the continent who was doing the printing, got to the British how they could duplicate this currency. And the British had a plan to literally flood the colonies with this continental currency, which of course would have collapsed the economy of all of the colonies. The Culper ring got word of this, got the word back to Washington. Washington went to the Congress. Now, you'll appreciate this. So the Congress worked about as well then as it does now, because even though they had this imminent threat, it took them 4 months to decide what to do. But they did actually they recalled all the currency and then reissued new currency, which was still risky, but it saved the economy. The other one that almost everybody knows about is about Benedict Arnold. So the Culper ring is credited with providing the information that led to breaking up Arnold's attempt to turn over West Point. So from the evidence that I was able to uncover, the Culper ring never knew who was going to defect. They had gotten word that someone in Washington's circle was asking questions about going to the other side. They didn't know who that was, but they had sent their message out to Washington to say, just kind of be on the lookout. And as the historians have recorded, that message got to Benjamin Talmage, and Benjamin Talmage happened to have Major John Andre, him, who was the guy who turned Benedict Arnold. And as a result of that, they ended up figuring out what was going on. Talmage had copies of West Point's fortifications hidden in his boot, and they knew something was afoot. So the original plan by Benedict Arnold was to not only to defect, they had a plan to kidnap Washington, and they were going to turn over West Point. And if West Point goes, the entire section of the U.S. has gone because there's no way to supply the troops. The Culper Ring stopped that. I already said that. Okay. All right. So that all of that I shared with you, I learned because I've always been a fan of Revolutionary War. I've read a score of books about both fiction and nonfiction about the Revolutionary War, and it intrigued me because when I did the research for my new book, it's on your table. I learned stuff I never knew before. You'll encounter more of those details when you get the book. I alluded to earlier that the Culper Ring consisted of 6 men and 1 woman. While historians have been able to piece together to identify all 6 men, historians have never been able to identify the woman. The historical record only has a few references to the woman. The woman's number is 355. All of the members of the Culper Ring had a number. Her number was 355, and in other references, they simply refer to her as the lady. And they also have evidence of secrets that she helped reveal. What I did was I used this information to create a fictional character to step into the shoes of Agent 355, to be able to help put flesh on what really might have happened. When Abigail comes, she's a teacher. Educators, not usually be so surprised. So she's a teacher, and she comes to teach in a small room schoolhouse, who very shortly after she starts the school ends up being overrun by the British, and all the people leave because the British steal all the farm stuff. So she goes to New York to find work, eventually ends up in the employ of a British officer, a wealthy British officer with children to be tutored, and there she ends up learning secrets. As if you saw what I had up before, the reviews have been literally off the charts. The reviews have been fantastic. These are just a few of them and I'm really excited. This book is available in print and ebook. They're working on audio format, but not yet. And then I'll just kind of give you the background of how I got to here, and then hopefully I will leave time for questions. So that's going to work out okay. All right. So for those of you that have not, I'm very thrilled to be back, because this is actually my 3rd time talking with this wonderful club. I am a member of Xenia Rotary, so I have great respect for the work that you do. In the past, I've shared this. So my very first novel, published 14 years ago, was called Leave No Child Behind. It's a thriller about a terrorist takeover of a high school in Ohio. Since then, I've written 4 Haunted Shore Mystery series. They've done wonderful. They've done fantastic. The latest of which was out last year, called Red Shadows at Saugatuck. It's the story of a murder take place up in Michigan, and it involves MMIW, missing and murdered Indigenous women. I also have a new series called Lessons in Peril, and this is an amateur sleuth mystery. My books have won more than a dozen awards. Here's a few examples of them, which you saw up here. And this Abigail Trench has already won its first award, called the Gold Award from Literary Titan. Before I finish, I always like to get a plug for my podcast. I don't know who listens to podcasts out there. Who's a podcast listener? Not many. Okay, which is kind of typical for my audiences. That's all right. This is a podcast that even if you don't do podcasts, you might be interested in. So who in here remembers Paul Harvey, The Rest of the Story? Okay, well, this is Paul Harvey, The Rest of the Story, about famous authors, directors, and poets. So I take famous authors that you know, both classical and current, and I tell you their story, and then I tell you the part of their story that you've never heard of. And it's a very quick, easy listen. It's about a 10, 12-minute listen for each one. Tell me who your favorite author is. It's probably on there. John Grisham, he's on there. James Patterson, he's on there. Stephanie Ivanovich, she's on there. So Also, Ernest Hemingway, Edgar Allan Poe, Shel Silverstein, famous children's poet. So you'll learn some interesting things about people that you've been reading for a long time. All the books are $20, including the new one. And I finish up by saying, what a better way to celebrate 250 years anniversary than the story of an unknown hero of the American Revolution. I hope I've intrigued you enough that some of you want to pick up a copy of my book. But even if that's not your thing, you know somebody who loves historical fiction, so please pick up one of the one of the bookmarks, share that with them, and go. If you like historical fiction, you need to check this out because this guy did this great Revolutionary War presentation for Rotary. I know you're going to love it. Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to answer any questions if we have time, President. Yes. Really? That's great. There you go. Make sure I was right. So I appreciate you adding to that. It's where, I'm sorry? Akron, Kent. Actually, I'm going there next month, so I may check that out. I will tell you that Abigail Trench is the first of 4 series.
No, Benjamin Talmadge.
And it was started by Reverend David Bacon, and the church is still there in the good old Talmadge Circle, which is a really awful place to drive around. It has 8 roads coming into it, so.
Oh, really? Wow, that's it. 8 roads?
8 roads.
Is there a roundabout?
It was before roundabouts were actually made, but so yeah, there's folks are north, south, east, west, and then the other 4 roads are named north, east, south, west.
All right. Anybody else have a question? Revolutionary War, yes.
Available on Amazon.
All of these books are available anywhere you get your book. All these books have audio versions. This one, the audio version is not out yet, but public is telling me soon. I'm a little impatient, but they're telling me we're working on it the best I can. Anybody else have any questions? Well, thank you so much for letting me. I will stay around and sign books and pick up all my stuff off your table. We're done. Thanks so much.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Door prizes were provided by Colton McGuire. And 2 tickets, white tickets in the 9169. 9169. Keith. And 9177. 9165. 9177. 77.
9177.
9177.
Talking table 9177.
White tickets 9177.
That was our ticket from getting the question correct.
No, you can read.
The 8. We did it early.
No 77.
All right, move on.
9177. Red Bank. Red Bank, very good.
We'll take care of you now.
All right.
Sitting down here, very blessed.
Oh, shoot.
I think we're going to
On and off, sorry.
just set up at 4:30.
No, I've never been down there, so
There'll be a booth.
we're gonna grab the tent. I will be down there to take the tent early. I'll be there at 4:30. I'll find out where it's at. So the tent and then Lori's got and you have the game. And so we've got Lori, myself, you, and Carolyn right now, and I don't think that should be enough.
And it's somewhere in the park.
No, it'll be in the main Great Lawn area.
Great one there.
They'll be able to tell us at their setup table where.
Tom,
our
are you
spot
getting
is.
it? Are you getting
We have it.
Yeah, is he just, is he one getting?
Who has the tent? Is it
It's
here?
in the closet, yeah.
All right, I'll grab the tent when I leave. All right, and the other side?
That's all right.
Gang?
Why?
Good. I'll grab the tent today, either or you to start setting up.
Okay.
Okay. Did you have prices? You don't need any other donations or anything? Okay, very good. Let's go ahead and stand. Same. Number 2. Fair. Number 3. And number 4.
See, that's not fine. Yes.
Yeah, I do it like that. I told them, let me go when we get, okay. That's good. Right here. Radio, there's. Yeah, we'll share.
I think that's what I normally do. I pop them.
That turned out well.
It turned out well.